If you really loved me, you would let me follow my higher calling. Carolina actually said that. Then, she took the money we'd saved for our wedding and used it to fly to India with her yoga teacher. She looked me in the eye and told me I was living a low-vibration, ordinary life. So, I married her sister on the same day. From halfway around the world, she saw the wedding photos and found out her guru already had a wife and kids back home. Now, she's back, begging me to take her. But my answer? It didn't just break her, it shattered her completely. I'm 31 years old, a corporate lawyer in Denver, specializing in commercial real estate. I have stability, I earn well, and I think of myself as pretty responsible. Since graduating, I put in 70-hour weeks at a mid-sized firm until I made partner, and last year, I finally opened my own office. Today, I oversee 3 associates and my client list just keeps expanding. I've always lived by one clear rule: build a foundation. Work hard, save, and invest so that nothing can shake you. I drive a reliable BMW 5 Series. I own a 3-bedroom house in Cherry Creek, and I've saved enough that I could retire comfortably by 55 if I keep this up. It's not flashy, but it is deeply secure. My father drilled that into me, a foundation that doesn't crumble when relationships fail or markets crash. He spent 30 years in construction, coming home covered in dust with hands cracked from work. He always said, "Son, money doesn't buy happiness, but poverty guarantees misery." That teaching is etched into my skin. My ex-fiancé, Carolina, 29, was everything I thought I wanted when we met 3 years ago. She was a yoga instructor and a wellness blogger, with that spiritual yet perfectly curated style so many Denver women have perfected. Her long hair was always in these messy but calculated buns. She wore crystal necklaces to align her chakras, and her Instagram was basically a brochure for a permanent meditation retreat. We met at a charity gala for environmental causes. I was in my safe, navy blue suit and discreet tie. She was wrapped in flowing, costly fabrics, smelling of essential oils, like the air inside an esoteric fair. She was magnetic because she was my opposite. While I was immersed in contracts and legal clauses, she talked about energy healing and conscious living as if they were legitimate, high-powered careers. Her way of speaking elevated the most mundane requests into cosmic pronouncements. "The universe is calling us to connect authentically," she'd say when she wanted to go out to dinner. I feel I must explore this energy exchange. What she really meant was, "I expect you to pay for my $80 organic facial." Everything, always, was about energy, alignment, and divine timing. For the first 2 years, that imbalance somehow worked. She'd drag me to sound bath sessions, making me lie awkwardly on a mat while crystal bowls vibrated for an hour. In return, I got to introduce her to proper restaurants, far away from the incense and chakra workshops. She was supposed to soften my corporate edges, and I provided her with stability and access to a world beyond moon water. We seemed like opposites who perfectly compensated for each other. Carolina loved telling her yoga classes she had a corporate lawyer boyfriend, like I was some exotic trophy she had tamed. I'd show up at her studio events in slacks and a dress shirt, utterly out of place among the courts and baggy pants, but she found it amusing. Looking back, I willfully ignored a mountain of signs because the intimacy was great, and frankly, she looked like a goddess when she came to my work events. My partners always approved, exotic, but still suitably elegant. The first major red flag was her intense fixation on her yoga teacher, Matthias. 8 months ago, she started going to a new place called Sacred Lotus. It was pure theater, bamboo, Sanskrit proverbs everywhere, and so much incense it felt like a smoky abbey. Matthias was the founder. He was about 35, with a meticulously groomed beard, shoulder-length hair, and tribal tattoos that screamed cultural appropriation. He claimed to have studied in authentic Indian ashrams for 7 transformative years and spoke only in mysterious phrases about higher consciousness. But what really bothered me was how he corrected poses, touching the female students far more than necessary. To me, he was a glorified used car salesman wearing a guru costume. Soon, every single conversation with Carolina revolved around Matthias's gospel, that most people are trapped in their ego, that true love requires transcending social expectations, and that Western culture was disconnecting us from our true selves. He even taught her a new breathing technique that supposedly cured her anxiety. I started calling him Guru Matthias as a joke, but Carolina got intensely annoyed and lectured me on respecting spiritual teachers and having an open heart. Her 2 classes a week became daily sessions. Then came the $300 to $400 weekend workshops on spiritual awakening and releasing limiting beliefs. I wouldn't have cared so much if Carolina had a real income, but she made maybe $5,000 a year from her yoga classes and blogs about crystals. That money covered her small whims, while I covered everything real: the mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries, the car, and almost every outing. When I dared to ask about the expense of these spiritual escapes, she would shut down the conversation immediately, like a politician cornered by a reporter. "You can't put a price on spiritual growth," she'd declare. "This is an investment in my higher self, Felipe." Matthias's teachings have no monetary value. He's helping me break patterns that have limited me for entire lifetimes. The universe always provides what we need to grow. And all the while, I was the one sustaining our actual life. Carolina contributed maybe 20% to our joint expenses, and much of that money immediately went to Matthias's enlightenment seminars. I realized I was unintentionally funding a kind of spiritual affair with a married guy who charged lonely suburban women hundreds of dollars to tell them their problems were caused by blocked chakras. When I pointed out how deeply unfair the financial disproportion was, I just received another patronizing lecture. According to her, my concerns were proof of my scarcity mindset. She said my anxiety about her spending was merely a manifestation of my own fearful relationship with abundance. 2 months before the wedding, scheduled for September 15th at the Broadmoor, Carolina announced she felt spiritually disconnected from the planning. She spent hours meditating in the guest room, filling notebooks with journal entries about premarital anxiety, and having endless, long calls with Matthias, who was advising her on how to free herself from cultural programming around commitment. At first, I foolishly thought it was just amplified wedding jitters, dressed up in her spiritual jargon. We had already dropped $15,000 in deposits. Invitations were sent to 120 people. And I'd bought her the $10,000 Art Deco engagement ring she had specifically requested after meditating on which piece vibrated with her energy. Organizing the event had been absolute agony. Carolina insisted everything had to align with our values: organic flowers, a menu adapted to her ever-changing diets, and a photographer who understood the sacred nature of the union. Every vendor meeting became a spiritual consultation about their energy and respect for the ceremony's holiness. Until the morning the entire script flipped. I was in my home office reviewing real estate contracts when she walked in with a practiced serenity that, by then, I knew meant serious trouble. She wore one of those flowy white dresses that cost a fortune in boutiques filled with geodes. Her hair was gathered in a perfectly calculated carefree bun, and she held a cup of ceremonial cacao. "Felipe, I need to tell you something important," she said, using that calm, gentle yoga voice, the one she always employed to soften bad news or lend weight to a declaration. "What is it?" I asked, not looking up, assuming it was another lecture about restrictive diets or a new workshop. "I've been working spiritually with Matthias, exploring my authentic path, and I've received powerful clarity about our relationship and my life." That phrase forced me to close the laptop. The morning light hit her, giving her a completely false, ethereal glow, but I knew she had rehearsed this performance. "I'm not ready to get married, Felipe. Not in the traditional way we're planning. I need to postpone the wedding and travel to India with Matthias. I want to study in authentic ashrams and find my purpose before I commit completely." I stared at her for 10 full seconds, my brain refusing to process her words. They hung in the air like heavy incense smoke, thick and completely unreal. "You want to postpone our wedding 2 months out to go to India with your yoga teacher?" It's not postponing. It's respecting divine timing. The universe is telling me I need this spiritual quest to be able to truly commit. Matthias has contacts with authentic masters who will help me do the inner work I'm lacking. "Carolina, we have 120 confirmed guests. We've already lost over $15,000 on deposits. Money is just energy, Felipe. What's important is spiritual authenticity. According to Matthias, most marriages fail because people don't do the necessary inner work. And what exactly does Matthias say about leaving your fiancé 2 months before the wedding?" Her serene facade finally cracked, revealing a sharp, cold edge in her eyes. "He says that true love supports spiritual growth, even if it's uncomfortable. If you really loved me, you'd want me to follow my highest calling instead of trapping me in conventional structures. Your highest calling is running off to India with a man who charges women $300 to tell them they're spiritually constipated. That cynicism is exactly what's blocking your heart chakra," she fired back, losing the calm entirely. "Matthias is an authentic teacher. He's helping me see that I've been living a lie, trying to fit into your corporate world instead of honoring my true essence." My inner lawyer snapped into focus, analyzing every single word, searching for cracks, just like in a hostile negotiation. How long is this spiritual journey supposed to last? It's not about time, but about process. It could be 3 months, 6, or whatever it takes until I align with my authentic self. And Matthias is going on this journey, too? Of course. He's my spiritual guide. He has direct relationships with ashrams in India, where we can learn from masters who haven't been corrupted by Western commercialism. The way she emphasized the "we" was all I needed to hear. This wasn't growth. It was an escape disguised as enlightenment. "There's no need to postpone anything," I said, my voice dangerously low. "What do you mean, nothing to postpone?" The finality of the situation struck her. The wedding is permanently canceled. Her composure shattered like crystal falling on stone. "Felipe, you are absolutely overreacting. This is about spiritual growth, not abandonment. I'm trying to be a better partner for you." "No, Carolina. This is about choosing another man and hiding it behind spiritual language so you don't have to feel guilty." That is completely untrue. Matthias and I are teacher and student. This is about my personal evolution. Save it, Carolina. I'm a lawyer, remember? I can spot an empty speech dressed up with pretty words a mile away. I stood up and walked to the door, knowing I was closing the book on our life together. You have 3 days to get your things out of the house. The ring stays. My voice was solid, unshakable. I bought it for a woman who wanted to marry me, not for someone who prefers to go find herself in India with her yoga instructor. Carolina stared at me, eyes wide, as if I had spoken an unthinkable curse. You can't be serious. It doesn't have to end like this. We can fix this together. The universe is just testing us before we take this sacred step. I crossed my arms and watched her with cold clarity. You know what? You might be right. The universe sent me a very clear signal. And that signal is that I was about to commit my life to a person who doesn't know what she wants, who manipulates, and who plays games with mystical speeches. It's over, Carolina. I didn't wait for a reply. I left her standing there, probably paralyzed, wondering why her spiritual tactics had failed so spectacularly. But for me, that was just phase 1. I still had work to do. That night, I made calls. First, to my best friend, Kreisel, and then to my brother, Rodrigo. I needed close, honest voices, people who could tell me if I was crazy or if I had finally woken up. Kreisel arrived first. He took one look at my face and grinned ironically. All right, tell me, what did Princess Chakra do this time? He'd invented that nickname because he couldn't stand her air of superiority disguised as enlightenment. He worked in finance and had zero tolerance for what he called blackmail disguised as cosmic energy. To him, Carolina was the woman who ordered the most expensive dish while lecturing the waiter about energetic reciprocity. When Rodrigo arrived, we sat down, and I laid out the whole story. The silence afterward felt heavy. Kreisel's response was raw. Brother, she planned this. No one wakes up 2 months before their wedding and decides to ditch it for India without preparing the ground. This has been brewing since she started daily classes with that so-called Guru Matthias. Rodrigo, ever the detective, approached it differently. The important thing is what you really know about this Matthias guy, beyond her narrative. I paused. Honestly, just what she told me. Late 30s, studied in India, runs Sacred Lotus, helps bored suburban women find themselves. Rodrigo nodded slowly. That's nothing. I can look into him. Social media, background checks. I'll get you a full report. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to just forget it, but my lawyer's gut told me I needed to understand the scope of the betrayal before I could move on. Do it. I want to know exactly who this guru is. While Rodrigo began his research, I started the painful job of dismantling the wedding. I called the venue, the caterer, the florist, and the photographer. Explaining that the bride had gone to find herself in India instead of getting married was completely humiliating. I lost most of the deposits, though some vendors were surprisingly understanding. Valentina, the photographer, even gave a dry laugh. In 15 years, I've seen everything. Brides find their true calling right before the wedding all the time. Usually, it's an ex or a coworker, but a yoga teacher? That's new. I call my family too. My parents were never fond of Carolina. My mother always said she seemed to be perpetually auditioning for the role of enlightened bride. My father, blunt as always, delivered the final verdict. Son, better to lose $15,000 than 20 years of your life. Her sister, Isadora, reacted differently when I called her. Felipe, I'm sorry about Carolina. But honestly, I never thought she was the one for you. Isadora, 27, was everything Carolina pretended to be. Genuine, sensitive, and successful on her own terms. She worked as a pediatric nurse. She was just getting out of a 3-year disaster with a chronic cheater. Thanks, I told her. I'm starting to see that. I really dodged a bullet. I agree. But listen, I have an idea. What is it? Don't cancel everything. Turn it into a family celebration. You've already invested the money. People are already planning to travel. Turn the failed wedding into a worthwhile get-together. It was an insane, intriguing thought, though I couldn't picture what we'd be celebrating. Celebrate what? My newfound ability to spot spiritual scammers. Call it whatever you want. But it's a huge waste to let Carolina's crisis ruin everyone's entire weekend, she replied. 2 agonizing days passed. Then Rodrigo called, and his tone was unmistakable. He'd found something huge. Brother, sit down. Your guru is a complete fraud. His real name is Eduardo Torres. The name hit me like a physical blow. What did you say? Look at this. He was born outside Chicago, has a business administration degree. He spent 6 weeks in India 5 years ago. It was a vacation with friends, not a retreat. Before Sacred Lotus, he worked in sales for a supplement company that the FDA shut down for fraud. And here's the kicker. He's married. Married. His wife is Camila. They've been together 12 years, married for 9. They have 2 young children. Rodrigo had even driven by his house. A minivan in the driveway, kids' bikes scattered on the lawn, a soccer schedule taped to the fridge. The portrait of a painfully normal suburban existence. A cold knot formed in my gut. Does Carolina know this? I doubt it. But I can tell you Camila doesn't. I called the dental office where Camila works, pretending to be a patient. She told me her husband was traveling next month for a business project. Nothing about ashrams. So, Matthias was lying to his wife, and, likely, to Carolina, too. The supposed enlightened guru was just a man with a mortgage, a family, and a double life, selling empty promises to restless women. I immediately called Kreisel. We have to talk. Now. Rodrigo got the report. When I told him the truth, Kreisel's eyes widened. Let me get this straight. Your fiancé canceled your wedding to run off to India with a married man, a father of two, who told his wife it was a business trip. Exactly. And Carolina probably thinks he's single. Kreisel fell silent. Then a slow, malicious smile spread across his face. Do you realize the power you hold, Felipe? Yeah. That I was an idiot for trusting someone with such terrible judgment. No. It means you have immense power. Carolina thinks she's running away with a saint. His wife thinks he's traveling for work. They're both being played. And you have the information. What are you suggesting? You're a lawyer. Information is power. Use it carefully. That night, after thinking for hours, I made a decision that would change everything. I decided I was going to confront both of them and detonate the whole scam. I drove to the Sacred Lotus studio just as Carolina was finishing her class. Through the back entrance, I watched her, guiding about 25 women in complicated poses while Matthias, her great spiritual guide, walked among them, adjusting backs and hips. A very convenient teaching method for a man planning to ditch his family for a supposed spiritual quest. The room reeked of sandalwood and wishful thinking. The students were contorted, breathing heavily, as Matthias murmured phrases about receiving the universe's gifts. When the class ended, I approached them. Carolina looked completely stunned, as if I had violated a secret holy ritual. Carolina, Matthias, can we talk privately? I asked. She tensed up instantly. Felipe, what are you doing here? This is my sacred space. I just came to meet the spiritual guide who convinced my fiancé to cancel our wedding to go find herself, I replied. Matthias stepped forward, employing the practiced calm of a corporate negotiator dealing with a hostile takeover. Felipe, is it? Carolina told me about your concerns regarding her spiritual growth. I understand this can be difficult for someone who hasn't explored consciousness work, he said, right up until the moment I dropped the bomb. Eduardo Torres from Highlands Ranch. I cut him off. His face drained of color, turning whiter than a politician caught red-handed. How are Camila and the kids? 8 and 6, right? I'm sure they'll miss you while you're traveling for business to expand your supplement company. Carolina's expression crumbled. What is he talking about, Matthias? Who is Camila? She pleaded. Her guru started to stammer, his entire spiritual facade dissolving in real time. I can explain. There are complexities in my situation. No need, I said. Carolina, your spiritual guide is married and has 2 children. His wife thinks he's traveling for work next month. This trip to India is a midlife crisis, not a spiritual retreat. Carolina whipped around, confusion twisting into utter horror. Is this true? You're married. Relationships are complicated. Traditional marriage is a Western construct. Are you married? Yes or no? She screamed. Technically, yes, but it's not a conscious partnership. Camila and I have grown on different paths. What you and I have is a soul connection, he insisted. Oh my God. Carolina collapsed onto one of the meditation cushions. I postponed my wedding to run away with a married man. It's not running away, Matthias stammered, still trying to save face. It's about transcending conventional structures and exploring authentic connections. Get out, I commanded, before I call Camila myself and tell her about your spiritual plans with your students. Matthias snatched his hemp bag and ran, abandoning his spiritual authority and 25 shell-shocked women. Carolina burst into tears. They weren't the elegant, spiritual tears she used to cry. These were real, ugly sobs, the kind that come when you realize you've been a monumental fool. Felipe, I had no idea. I thought he was single. I thought this was about spiritual growth to be a better partner for you. Did you sleep with him? I asked. The hesitation was deafening. It wasn't for physical gratification. We connected on a spiritual level first. The physical was just a natural expression of that soul union, she babbled. That's a yes. We meditated together, practiced tantric breathing, conscious touching. It was sacred intimacy, not casual intimacy. Enough. I don't need the sales pitch. I cut her off sharply. I sat across from the woman I was supposed to marry. Stripped of her flowy clothes and crystals, she looked small and defeated. Someone who made terrible choices and used cheap mysticism to justify them. So now what? She whispered, her running mascara making streaks of misery. Now you decide your next step. The wedding is canceled. You need to be out of the house by Friday. And you should probably find a new yoga studio, because your teacher has just been exposed as a fraud. But I love you, Felipe. This was just confusion, a misguided quest. We can work through this. No, Carolina. You chose another man and used spiritual language to justify it. The fact that he's a fraud doesn't change the fact that you decided to abandon our life. I left her crying in the empty studio, surrounded by the wreckage of her fantasy. The next few days were a blur of logistics and damage control. Carolina packed while I was at work and left the engagement ring on the counter with a meaningless note about honoring our connection. More spiritual jargon to avoid accountability. I called the wedding venue to confirm the cancellation, resigned to losing everything. But the event coordinator, Fernanda, surprised me. Sir, I hate that you're losing all this money. Would you consider turning the event into something else? A big family celebration, a corporate retreat, something to recoup some costs. I appreciate it, but I don't know what I could possibly celebrate right now, I replied. Just think about it. You have a gorgeous venue booked, catering for 120, a band, flowers. It's a tragedy to waste it all because of one person's selfish decision, she insisted. I told her I would consider it, though the thought of celebrating anything felt absurd. That night, Isadora called to check on me. How are you holding up, she asked. Better than expected. Mostly just furious about the money and having to explain to 120 people why there's no wedding. What money, she asked. I explained the cancellation, the lost deposits, the whole financial fallout of calling off a wedding at the last minute. Felipe, I have an idea. It's completely crazy, but just hear me out, she said. I'm listening. What if we use the venue? What if we get married? I actually laughed out loud. Isadora, we don't have a romantic relationship. I'm not talking about romance, silly, she shot back. The idea came up almost as a joke, a desperate Hail Mary to salvage the money, a way to turn Carolina's disaster into something positive. Think about it. Isadora told me that afternoon, with that peculiar way she had of making the ridiculous sound completely logical. If we frame it as a big family celebration instead of a formal wedding, everyone is happy. We use the venue, I get an elegant dress, you wear your tuxedo, and we give everyone an unforgettable weekend instead of the embarrassment of a cancellation. I listened, silently analyzing. It was nuts, yes, but there was a strange, undeniable logic. Instead of eating the deposits and facing the shame of Carolina's guru-fueled escape, we could transform the entire spectacle into a beautiful, bizarre family event. We could quietly annul it later, laugh about it, and move on. She even pitched the idea of keeping the marriage for a year or two for tax benefits and health insurance. Isadora, I said, running a hand through my hair, utterly speechless. That plan is either the dumbest or the most brilliant thing I've ever heard in my life. And why can't it be both? She answered, flashing that infectious, genuine smile. Besides, what do we lose? I just got out of the disaster with Alvaro. You're dealing with the humiliation of your ex and her fake guru. We both need a massive reset. It'll be different, it'll be fun, even if it is completely ridiculous. She was right. In the days that followed, the fleeting idea solidified into a genuine plan. We decided we would present it as a celebration of new beginnings, a way to unite the families and send a positive message instead of advertising defeat. She was going to wear a simple dress, and I'd use the tuxedo I already owned. The ceremony would include all the trappings, but strictly symbolic. However, as we filed the paperwork, my practical lawyer mind took over. In Colorado, without a legal license, it would just be an expensive party. That's when the thought really took hold. What if we made it completely, legally real? I called my friend Erden. Erden, if two people get married, not for love, but for financial convenience, is that legal? Legal? Yes, it is, he replied, sounding fascinated. The real question is it smart? Are you running some kind of tax scam? I explained the whole crazy story, from Carolina's escape to Isadora's proposal. He listened intently, and when I finished, he actually chuckled. Felipe, this isn't as strange as you think. People marry for residency, for insurance, for military benefits, for taxes. As long as you both agree it's not a romantic commitment, it's perfectly valid. And if you divorce later, it's simple. File the papers, wait 90 days. Done. Faster than getting your oil changed. When I brought the idea of a legal marriage to Isadora, she was instantly, surprisingly enthusiastic. Of course, she declared. We're both single. We get along. We trust each other implicitly. What's the worst that could happen? Plus, it's the ultimate revenge on the chakra princess. You really don't think this is insane? I pressed. Insane is what Carolina did, leaving you at the altar for a married guru selling illusions. We're solving a problem with creativity and picking up some tax benefits along the way. So, for the next 3 weeks, we threw ourselves into planning our strange, beautiful wedding. Isadora found a simple, elegant ivory dress that highlighted her natural beauty, nothing like the spiritual costume Carolina had picked out. I already had my tuxedo. We kept all the same vendors, the venue, the decorations, the food. We just swapped the bride in the story. When I called my parents to explain the sudden change, their reactions were incredibly revealing. My mother didn't hesitate for a second. Son, we always liked Isadora better. This is the best decision you could make. My father, however, was still the pragmatist. Are you sure? It's a big step, even if it's temporary. It's worth it to save the deposits, Dad. It might only be a year or two until things stabilize, and then we'll divorce if we need to. But I trust Isadora completely, and that's worth everything. The guest list was tricky. We kept all my family and friends, but had to delicately explain the new bride to Carolina's side. Most accepted it better than expected, especially after I confirmed the guru was married. My friend Sebastian summed it up best with a roar of laughter. Brother, Isadora was always cooler than Carolina. At least she can laugh at your jokes instead of giving you chakra sermons. 2 days before the ceremony, I got the call I knew was coming. It was Carolina. Her voice was shaking, thick with tears. She sounded like she was at an airport. Felipe, please. I made a terrible mistake. Matthias vanished after you confronted him. His wife found out, and she's divorcing him. The India trip was a lie. I found out he's done this to several students. I need you. I love you. Carolina, I said, my voice utterly calm. I'm getting married on Saturday. With who? That's impossible. You can't be engaged already. With Isadora. The silence on the other end was absolute, crushing. Isadora? My sister. Yes, with her. It can't be. You and I are meant to be. I made a mistake, but I understand now. Choose me. You already had your chance, Carolina. You chose Matthias. I'm moving forward. This is revenge. You're only marrying her to hurt me. No. I'm marrying Isadora because she's a woman who never abandoned me, who has always been loyal. She encourages me to be better, not to be somebody I'm not. That is real growth, not spiritual theater. I hung up and blocked her number, though I took a screenshot of the call just in case. The wedding day was unexpectedly perfect. There was zero drama, zero artifice. Everything went better than I could have imagined. Isadora was radiant in that simple ivory dress. It highlighted her real beauty without any spiritual theatrics. That naturalness, that authenticity, was exactly what I desperately needed. And for the first time in a long time, everything just felt right. She walked down the aisle while Sebastian played acoustic guitar. Her smile was genuine, lacking the self-aware enlightenment Carolina always wore. My uncle Patricio, an ordained minister who had married several cousins, officiated. We had both written our vows carefully. They were simple, honest, and clear. I looked at her and spoke from the heart. Isadora, you have been my truest friend for 15 years. I promise to support your dreams, respect your independence, and never take your loyalty for granted. She looked at me, her eyes tender. Felipe, you have always been the most reliable person in my life. I promise to stand by you, to challenge you when you need it, and never to pretend to be someone I'm not in order to manipulate you. When Uncle Patricio pronounced us husband and wife, Isadora leaned over and whispered, well, that was easier than I expected. I kissed her gently on the cheek as people applauded, treating it like a normal, romantic wedding, not the beautiful, calculated strategy it truly was. The reception was wonderful. All the stress and chaos caused by Carolina's spiritual crisis vanished, replaced by an authentic celebration with people who genuinely cared about us. We had our first dance to The Way You Look Tonight. It was romantic enough for the moment, but not so profound it would make things awkward later. My cousin Ignacio, who had traveled from California, pulled me aside during dinner. Felipe, I have to ask you, is this real, or are you just completely screwing with everyone? He looked at Isadora, who was currently laughing with my grandmother while showing her a card trick she learned in Vegas. Real or not, he said. She makes you so much happier than Carolina ever did. That woman always looked like she was performing happiness, not feeling it. He was absolutely right. Isadora was truly enjoying the moment, not worrying about how the details looked on social media or if the cake aligned with the cosmic values. Valentina, the photographer, captured spectacular images. Us dancing, cutting the cake, posing with family members who looked genuinely thrilled. They were normal wedding photos, but the difference was that we were truly living the moment instead of performing happiness for the camera. We posted a few photos on Instagram and Facebook with a simple caption. Sometimes the best things happen when you least expect them. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Friends and family congratulated us, commented on how great we looked together, and universally agreed Isadora was better than Carolina. A college friend wrote, "You finally ended up with the right woman." But the reaction I was truly waiting for arrived 12 hours later. Carolina, still supposedly in India, likely paying for the trip on credit cards since Matthias had vanished, saw the post. My phone was flooded with her Instagram messages. How could you do this to me? We were supposed to get married. You stole my wedding and gave it to her. I'm coming home right now. This is the cruelest thing anyone has ever done to me. Then came the voice messages, increasingly hysterical. Felipe, you can't be serious. Isadora, my sister is my replacement. This is just a twisted revenge plan, and everyone sees it. I'm in the middle of finding myself, and you're posting wedding photos. Do you have any idea how this makes me look? The universe is testing me by showing me what I lost. Isadora read those messages and just chuckled, clearly entertained. She still doesn't get that actions have consequences, does she? She asked me. Spiritual people only believe in karma until it knocks on their own door. 3 days later, Carolina called from Denver International Airport. She had abandoned her spiritual quest entirely. I'm back. We need to talk face to face. There is nothing to discuss. Carolina, you only married Isadora to hurt me. I understand that. I deserve it. But enough is enough. I'm ready to commit. I know what I almost threw away. It's not a joke. Isadora and I are legally married. Legally married? But you don't love her. Not like you love me. This is just a cheap rebound. Carolina, I respect Isadora more in 3 days of marriage than I respected you in 3 years of our relationship. That's not love. It's better. Love fades when it's built on illusions. Respect grows when it's built on reality. She started crying, a real, pitiful sob that would never be Instagrammable. Please don't do this to us. I made a mistake. I was confused. The yoga teacher affair wasn't merely a spiritual crisis. It was a betrayal she disguised as enlightenment to avoid guilt. She insisted they weren't physically intimate until after our relationship ended. But to me, postponing the wedding to run off with him wasn't a clean break. It was keeping her options open while exploring a better opportunity. I choose you now, she wept. I've come home. You didn't choose me. I replied, steady and calm. You came back because your spiritual guru turned out to be a fraud and his wife is divorcing him. You didn't choose me, Carolina. You just ran out of better options. I hung up and called my friend Erden to prepare a possible restraining order. Isadora, having heard the whole thing, asked if I thought she would escalate. Probably, I answered. People wrapped up in spiritual nonsense can justify anything if they frame it as the will of the universe or their inner truth. 2 days later, Isadora's prediction came true. Carolina showed up at my front door. Her appearance was shocking. Unwashed hair, wrinkled clothes, eyes red and puffy. The image of the spiritual goddess was completely gone, leaving only a desperate, heartbroken person. Felipe, please give me 5 minutes. Let me explain what really happened in India, she begged. Isadora is inside, I replied. Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of my wife. Here's your fake wife, she spat sarcastically. Isadora appeared behind me, wearing one of my old law school t-shirts, completely comfortable in her new home. Hi, Carolina, she said serenely. How was your spiritual journey? This is insane. Carolina exploded. You can't really be married. You're pretending to be in love just to punish me. We're not pretending anything, Isadora replied, completely composed. We are married. But love wasn't part of the agreement. That is not a real marriage. Carolina insisted. The state of Colorado and the IRS seem to think otherwise, I replied. Without asking, Carolina shoved her way into the living room, proving her spiritual training definitely did not include respecting boundaries. I am not leaving until we sort this out. Felipe, you owe me that after 3 years. I owe you nothing. You left me for another man. I was confused. She claimed Matthias had manipulated her. He made me think I needed spiritual growth when all I really needed was better communication with you. So, your spiritual journey taught you that abandoning your fiancé was wrong? I asked. Yes, exactly. The universe sent me that lesson through suffering. I had to lose you to understand what we had. Isadora settled onto the sofa, clearly enjoying the spectacle. And what lesson did the universe send you about sleeping with married men? She asked dryly. Carolina flushed scarlet. That's not. I didn't know he was married. But you knew you were engaged? I countered. It's different, she whimpered. How? Because Felipe and I had problems. I felt spiritually empty. He didn't support my growth. I sat next to Isadora, emphasizing our united front. Here is the reality, Carolina. You broke our engagement to follow another man. That man was a fraud. Now you want to come back because your backup plan failed. That's not love. That's convenience. It's not convenience, she cried, her voice cracking. I finally understand what I lost. The universe showed me true love is rare, and I was wasting it on an illusion. You understood that in the past tense. I corrected her. I am already married to someone who never abandoned me for a yoga teacher. Carolina looked at Isadora with pure loathing. You stole him from me. You knew he was vulnerable after I left, and you swooped in like a vulture. Actually, Isadora replied sweetly. I helped him not lose his deposits. Keeping the husband was just a bonus. This is temporary, Carolina asserted. You'll get divorced when you get tired of this revenge fantasy. Maybe, I said calmly. Or maybe we'll discover we're better partners than we ever expected. The look on her face was perfect. The moment she realized her spiritual crisis hadn't just cost her a relationship, it had gifted me a better one. I won't give up, she said, getting ready to leave. True love doesn't disappear because someone makes a mistake. True love doesn't postpone weddings to run off with married yoga teachers, I concluded. After Carolina finally stormed out of the house, the tension slowly evaporated. Isadora looked at me with that knowing, level gaze and asked if I thought she'd keep trying to force her way back into my life. I don't know, I admitted, letting out a heavy sigh. What I do know is that she no longer has any power over me. Days bled into weeks. Carolina sent a few more messages, but I never responded. I made a conscious choice that I wasn't going to drag around ghosts that had only brought chaos. I focused on the present, a quiet life and a relationship with Isadora that, despite its completely bizarre beginning, was surprisingly wonderful. We aren't a fairy tale movie couple, but we've built a solid partnership based on trust, respect, and a shared vision for the future. That quiet, dependable stability feels infinitely more valuable than any promise of fleeting passion I was abandoned for. Looking back now, I realize Carolina's spiritual meltdown was, in a dark, strange way, the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it forced me to close a chapter and start a new one where, for the first time, I genuinely feel in control of my own destiny. If she still clings to the idea that she has a chance, that's her problem to carry. I've found something far more important than the illusion of a toxic romance. If given the choice again, would you sacrifice $15,000 for financial stability and immediate emotional closure, or wait in the hope that your runaway fiancé would return spiritually enlightened and still single? Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share your thoughts about this story in the comments.